Good day and greetings to all participants of Interpore 2023 conference. I am honored to present our work on the per-scale simulation of the interdependency between corner flow, roughness, and time effect on the efficiency of low-salinity water flooding in a mixed bed system. I am Ali Ahmadi, currently collaborating with Dr. Hassan Mahani and Dr. Shahab Ayatullahi on my Master of Science thesis at Sharif University Technology. This presentation is structured as follows. First, we are going through a brief introduction, then literature review, problem statement, research method, results, and finally, the conclusions. Low-salinity water flooding is a multi-scale process, which means several length scales are involved from the moment that low-salinity effect is initiated at the molecular scale up to the stage that the low-salinity recovery is observed at the field scale. Moreover, the activation of the intermediate scales explains the failure or success of low-salinity water flooding results observed in the experiments. Among them, poor scale as well as poor network scale, in which wettability change as the most favorable cause of low-salinity recovery can be observed, seem to be very critical and require more attention. In this regard, we aim to investigate the effect of poor geometry on the performance of low-salinity water flooding. Two of the most important features of the poor geometry are roughness and poor angularities. Roughness can affect the oil-water contact angle by determining the amount of interactions between the oil and the rock outcrop, rendering the rock more water-wet as the height of surface roughness increases. Therefore, imposes critical effects on the flow regime during the two-phase flow. Angularities of pores, on the other hand, can lead to corner flow phenomenon, which simply, as the name implies, is the flow of water through the corners of pores that may occur in both drainage and imbibition processes. Corner flow can be responsible for mixed wettability in the reservoirs, through which the wettability of the walls in contact with oil will be altered to an oil wetting state and the corners remain preferentially water wet. Besides, the other types of the mixed wettability found in the literature are displayed in the surrounding figures. Based on the literature, so far the effect of corner flow, mixed wettability, and roughness on the dynamics of low-salinity water flooding is not investigated. Therefore, in this research study, an attempt is made to observe the combined effects of the aforementioned attributes in a pore network, which will present more realistic results during low-salinity water flooding investigations. For this purpose, we have benefited from OpenFOAM, which is an open source toolbox to conduct the direct numerical simulations. To track the interface during our two-phase flow simulations, the volume of fluid method has been selected that uses an indicator function alpha, which determines the fraction of fluids in each cell. Then, continuity and Navier-Stokes equations are solved to obtain the velocity and eventually update the value of alpha by an advective equation to track the interface. The concentration has been provided by solving another equation called continuous species transfer, or simply CST. As for the wettability alteration, the full range interpolation method, which is a linear approach, has been used to interpolate the value of contact angle between an upper and a lower threshold as low-salinity water flows through the pore space. To simulate the low-salinity water flooding under the influence of pore geometry, two different geometries are designed. First, a homogeneous geometry with identical grain sizes to investigate the flow regime with and without the presence of corner flow, respectively in 2D and quasi-3D models. And the second geometry was selected to check the validity of the first one and to observe per scale phenomena in detail. Moreover, vertical grooves are incorporated into our models to represent the surface roughness as observed in the study of Fredrickson et al. The simulation conditions for the homogeneous geometry consisting of the initial and boundary conditions for both drainage and imbibition processes, as well as the fluid properties used during our prescale simulations are provided in the opposite tables. On the left side, the drainage sequence can be observed. In each illustration, the upper figure is a transparent form of the lower one to show the displacement in detail. After steady-state condition is reached, the wettability of the walls adjacent to oil will be changed from water wet to oil wet to develop a mixed wettability state in the system, as in the study of Landry et al. The secondary low-salinity water flooding simulation then is performed, which is displayed on the right. As highlighted in figure F, the oil is still attached to the wall. However, low-salinity water can bypass the oil through the corner flow mechanism and change the wettability of the walls ahead of the primary interface. This will narrow down the thickness of oil distinguished in figures G to J. In the 2D mode of simulations in which corner flow is ignored, low-salinity brine is only restricted behind the primary oil-water interface, leading to a piston-like displacement as shown by the red arrows in the figures A to C. This piston-like flow continues until reaching the grain walls that meniscus collapse takes place. Nevertheless, in the 3D simulations under the influence of corner flow, a multidirectional displacement results in a major oil entrapment as observed in figures D to F. The 22% difference in the recovery factors between the 2D and 3D simulations is assumed to be caused by the influence of corner flow and the consecutive change in the flow regime. Similar to the homogeneous geometry cases, the simulation conditions for the heterogeneous geometry, including the initial and boundary conditions, also the fluid properties, are displayed in the following tables. In the second geometry, which has a higher level of heterogeneity in comparison with the preceding pore network, the drainage process is simulated in the same manner as follows. Before proceeding to low-salinity water flooding sequences in the second geometry, a new prescale observation needs to be further discussed. As low-salinity brine flows to the corners of a pore, it begins to change the wettability ahead of the primary front, which leads to the imbibition of water along the surface roughness. Then low-salinity brine starts to swell in that location, as displayed in this slide, leading to oil breakup via snap-off process, which is being explained for the first time in our study. Oil production starts as low-salinity water flooding is being injected. In each illustration, the figure on the right is the lower half of the whole geometry, which lies on the left to provide the prescale displacement in detail. In the course of injection, several volumes of trapped oil can be observed, which are caused by the earlier snap-off mechanism. As shown in this slide, low-salinity water flooding has been capable of producing a major volume of oil. However, the interplay between the corner flow and roughness in the current wettability alteration rate reduces the oil recovery by low-salinity water flooding. According to the results of the two geometries, the following conclusions can be made. Firstly, considering corner flow, mixed wettability, and roughness makes a more elastic outcome in the two-phase flow simulations. Secondly, corner flow affects extensively on the flow regime and recovery factor. Thirdly, Low salinity water should not move ahead of the primary front, otherwise it leads to oil entrapments. And finally, a snap-off mechanism as described reduces low salinity recovery, and this mechanism is observed for the first time in our model. During our conference, I would like to draw your attention to another remarkable work from our group presented by Ahmad Reza Kamani. The presentation is titled as Post-Scale Simulation of the Effect of Interfacial Viscoelasticity in Low Salinity Water Flooding. The findings of this study are worth exploring and could potentially have a significant impact on the field. At the end, I am grateful for your attention to this presentation. Thank you all very much.